and welcome to the News from the Real World video podcast. We are coming to you live from Carnegie Mellon's Paint Shop. Today I have with me Margo Bway, first-year directing student.
Hello.
Dale Harris, third-year technical director.
Good morning.
Kat Meyerndorf, second-year stage management student.
Hi.
And Tyler Holland, third-year costume designer.
Hi.
I'm Lauren Mills. I'm a third-year scenic designer. And Tyler, you're going to get us started with an article about sleep deprivation.
Okay, yeah, this is actually from Radio Lab. This was a segment that they did on sleep deprivation, where they spoke with Dr. Alan Pack and Dr. Julio, I don't even know, Tononi. And one is a professor at University of Pennsylvania, and one's a professor of psychology at Madison University. And basically, they were both talking about the sleep on a cellular level and what it does for you. The most interesting part about it was that Tononi, the professor of psychiatry at Madison, what he was talking about is that basically what happens is during the day you see so much stimuli, you hear so much stimuli, so your brain just kind of compacts it all, and then sleep helps you just wipe it away, and so that the most important things that you focused on kind of come forward in the morning, so you're more awake in the morning. I mean, that was the general gist of the
Yeah,
piece.
just that there are these physical effects that happen to your cells when you don't get enough sleep, which I mean, I think everyone has anecdotal evidence of that.
I think we're dealing with two different things here. You know, as grad students, we all don't sleep as much as we should, but I think they're talking about true sleep deprivation, like an hour of sleep a night for a year, or like if you have small children at home. So when you have that much sleep deprivation, then your body really starts to break down. I think we just get cranky and you get cranky, and then you take in more coffee. I think when they're dealing with the cellular proteins folding and unfolding at the cell level,
Right.
I
think that the point that they were making was that it only does take one night of sleep deprivation for that effect to start. I think that it's different. That yes, it's much worse if you've gone like 3 weeks without sleep, but that even the first day that it happens, that effect has started, and if you don't ever catch up, it just gets worse and worse and worse.
Right. So not that it's the same as being, held and tortured with sleep deprivation if you are, staying up late to write a paper or what have you. But it does have an actual physical effect. It's not your imagination that you are dumber when you don't sleep. You are dumber.
That's right.
By the same token, I also thought it was interesting that they talked about how sleep can help you be smarter. They talk a lot of musicians and artists who will be playing the guitar and they can't get it quite right, and they go to sleep and they wake up and it's there. So I think that speaks to the power of sleep to help us organize our brain as well. And they talked about that on a molecular level, which I thought was incredibly useful and insightful.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the reason for that, though, is like partly related to what they were talking about, but your mind keeps working when you go to sleep. So if you work on something before you go to sleep, like you read your notes, it's the study tip, you read your notes before you go to sleep, and then you go to sleep, you remember them better in the morning, rather than staying up till 5 in the morning trying to memorize them.
Or the idea that like sleeping on something can give you insight into a problem.
And it does. I think we've all had experiences with that.
Yeah.
So all we need to do, guys, is get 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night.
Yeah.
And we'll be successful.
Actually, I think they've lowered it down to 6 now. They're saying is actually what you're supposed to do because of the REM cycle and everything like that. They're saying it's like 6 because I've always heard it's multiples of 3s.
Yeah.
Actually, it takes 3 hours to go through one whole REM cycle.
Yeah, well, sleep more because it's useful.
There you go.
We're going to move on to an article, Kat, about digital etiquette. Tell us about it.
This article is entitled Disruptions, Digital Era Redefining Etiquette. It's from a New York Times blog entitled Bits, and it's by Nick Bilton. So this article was one that students commented on a lot this week. And the basic gist of it is that in the current digital age, people are rude, essentially, in their communications, in the sense that they will send fake emails that just say thank you, or they will leave voicemails instead of sending somebody a text. And this article made the point that nobody checks voicemail anymore, that people expect, if it's really that important, you'll send me a text, and I'll know exactly what you want, and I'll be able to respond, whereas voicemail takes more time, takes more effort on the part of the person receiving it, because you can't really kind of check it surreptitiously on the side while you're sitting, at a table with somebody else. And it goes into a lot of talking about in the past, people talked face to face and sent, real letters with real, letter writing, business letter etiquette of, address, dear sir, madam, and sincerely. And now that doesn't exist anymore to the same extent. And so people need to change with the times. What do you guys think? Is this rude? Is it...
Okay, so etiquette, here I go. Etiquette is evolving. Okay, so we started writing letters, 10,000 years ago. I don't know when we developed the ability to do written word. So for 10,000 years, we could write letters. Email came, when did you send your first email? 1992, maybe? So this email is a new technology. So we can't take 10,000 years of letter writing protocol, and it has to change, and it's changing. So we need to put a panel together to create new electronic etiquette. Ann Landers, she's dead, rest in peace. Someone needs to step up in her voice and say, these are the new etiquettes of sending a text message or doing a voicemail. How many of you check your voicemail?
Yeah,
I don't.
I don't.
If it's important, you'll text me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I think there's a generational thing. Like, I will check if it's from my mom, I'll check my voicemail because she's not going to text me, And so I think especially in the professional world, that tends to be a barrier for people maybe of earlier generations where they're not going to text you to say they're running late. They're going to call leave a voicemail, or they're going to write you an email that has a greeting, a body, and a close to it.
So that is going away. That is going away. The article mentioned this, and now you see on your phone who's it from, and you can go online and find all the information you need. You don't need the person's address in the letter. So just evolve with it, people, and we just need to find new rules that we can all agree on. I think a thank you text is completely appropriate to say thank you if somebody does something for you, with no more information other than thank you. I think it's polite.
I don't disagree with you. What I have a problem is that with this instant communication, that there's a sense that these roles are needed. That you don't need to be respectful and that you don't need to have that etiquette in digital communication. I think it's a bit lost.
Right, there's a lack of value of interpersonal skills in communication.
But I think that we need to understand how to reinvent that for this format. I have a real problem with any sense that this is a burden. I think, regardless of whether it's an email or a text, there should be, that kind of respectful communication present.
I think that though the interesting thing that the article brings up is that that's not actually the argument. Is that people are finding ways, or it's the
Spit it out.
It's like, okay, I'll give you an anecdote right here. There are people that I talk to via text that we send a text back. It's for simple exchange of information. That's what a text is. It's quick, it's dirty, it's easy, you got it done. But there are people that will type out long messages on text and continuously send them. And the reason why I have my phone on or whatever so that I can check text is probably because I can't answer my phone. So that's kind of like, I thought what the argument was that, you need to understand, you just need to be observant and say that, and see that texts are for this, whereas emails are for longer things, and voicemail might as well just not exist.
So here is the next step, and it's going to happen. Texts and email will become the same thing. You won't have a
They
phone.
already are on
Right.
iMessage. They
You won't
already
have
are.
a phone number. That bit when you do reply to us as the News from the Rural podcast, communicate in the worst way possible.
Yeah.
We send each other emails that keep getting copied and forwarded and copied and forwarded, and you get it, and it spits out like 30 previous conversations, and everyone's little address. Your address is on there like 40 times at the bottom. So that is going away. Back in the days of emails, they had all the URL, the address, and the web hosting, all that little information in there. That's going to go away too. It's all going to be the same thing, and then we'll get a little panel together with Ann Lander's ghosts and put together.
See, I don't think we need to get a panel together. Like, as much, okay,
Etiquette is
let
agreed.
me finish. Thank you. As much as Emily Post was like the poster child for, 1950s etiquette, like that was what she did, and it was what everybody quoted and what everybody knows. I think that now it would be impossible for that to happen with things like texting and with email because it's changing so fast, and people use it for so many different things that I don't think there can be one specific, like, now we write text messages like this. Like, that will never happen.
I just think as long as people are using it for like what they think is convenient or appropriate, making an effort to like be polite, the where I draw the line is sort of when people are just clearly being lazy. Like I saw a Facebook message the other day, someone was like, "Thanks to everyone who donated to my Kickstarter. I don't have time to thank you all individually, but I really appreciate it." You lazy. People gave you money and you can't take the time to send them a text or an email or thank them in person. That is just laziness. That is an abuse of the
That
technology.
concerns me moving forward that we will lose that etiquette.
So, I've been applying for a job, and if anyone has a job for me, I will apply to it. If I get an interview with a job, handwritten mail
Yes.
thank you note. Soon that will not be considered appropriate anymore. Like I still do that as a relic of the '80s. That is
But I think
going
now
away.
that's something that makes you stand out.
Right.
Which,
try
like,
and
I
hold
don't
it.
think it'll ever become inappropriate. I think the further, like, as we keep moving, that'll just become something that less and less people do. So if you still do it, it becomes a, like, oh, look, this is cool, mail. Like,
Yeah. If it still exists.
which, like, I do that now. When I get a real letter, I'm so excited because it's the best thing ever.
Well, on that note, we'll see where this continues to go. Fascinating problem. We're going to move on to another kind of digital issue. Dale, tell us about it.
So, Life of Pi. Anybody see Life of Pi, the movie? Okay. It was the effects organization that did all the effects of the movie was 98% digital effects. It was VFX. This is an article from the Hollywood Reporter by Jonathan Handel and Carolyn Carolyn? About there's no union representation of digital effects artists. It was a great article. It's a new, and this happens every time a new technology emerges, is workers invented and they figure it out, and then the establishment takes advantage of them, and then they unionize, so this is going to happen. Just like so many other areas of work. These folks win awards for what they do. 90% of the production staff are visual effects artists. Being outsourced, they're being treated unjustly. They're starting to go through the steps of whether or not they're going to be represented by the IATSE 829. They have to get 60% of visual effects artists to sign union cards. So lots of nuts and bolts on the forming of this new union. It's definitely taken in that direction. And it is going to be, it's just the next step of the visual effects artist. Anybody have any thoughts?
Well, I don't know if you guys saw this on Facebook. Right after the Oscars, there was this upsurge of everyone turning their Facebook profile pics to just a blank green screen to show solidarity with VFX artists who were getting screwed over, shall we say, in this process, because the company that did Life of Pi, am I right about this?
Declared bankruptcy.
Declared bankruptcy, right? And which is ridiculous. I mean, it has something to do with how they're paid. They're paid flat rates rather than like hourly, and they're afraid of losing, their clients, which there's like 6 studios. So if you only have those 6 and you lose them, then you're going to go out of business anyway. So I mean, it seems like there are some interesting challenges to the practical application of this idea of having a trade union and unionizing. So it seems like there's a will to do it from a lot of the artists, but there's always that fear when you start unionizing that these companies that have so much power are going to frown upon paying people for it.
But that's been the way of it for hundreds of years. Steelworkers all the way
For
back.
10,000 years.
For
Since
10
the written word began.
Those first cavemen unionized.
I was shocked to learn how bad this is. I mean,
Right.
the fact that they are, one, that they're exporting work, they're going elsewhere to get cheaper rates. But the second thing is that these studios, just to survive, are taking work at lower costs, and that's absolutely killing them. They're barely breaking even on most of the movies that they do right now, and that's appalling for the amount of work that they do to make the movie. Without those visual effects, a lot of those movies would be a green screen.
And it's becoming more and more prevalent in the movie business.
Yeah.
Visual effects are becoming more integrated
As
into
it's
the work.
getting closer and closer to true live action. And so The Adventurers was a great example of this. So many characters are digitally drawn that now you can't tell the difference. And it's getting more and more prevalent. Yes.
Remember what a big deal it was when Gollum, Andy Serkis performed as Gollum, people were like, "What is this performance? Is it digital effects? What is it?" And now that we're like, "Oh, right, of course, that."
Yeah, it's gotta be.
So
We take it for granted, so I think we need to find a way to, take care of our VFX
To
people.
take care of the people that take care of us.
Exactly. So we'll keep an eye on this, certainly. We're going to move on and talk a little bit about computers, but in a little bit of a different way. So this is an article from the Washington Post called "Can Computers Fill the Role of Choreographers?" This is an article by Sarah Kaufman, and it discusses primarily the work of Troika Ranch, which is a dance company founded by Mark Caniglio and Don Stapiello. And what they do is that they're integrating technology into their performance in a much different way than I think we've seen before. They're interested in looking at the ways not only that we interact with technology, but the ways that technology affects us in our everyday life. So they've created a couple of dance pieces now that focus on the new physical vocabulary that goes along with the technology. What are the movements that technology is creating for us in our daily lives? What do you guys think about this? This is a pretty fascinating article, pretty fascinating take on dance and technology.
My main thought was, why don't I have time to go see cool stuff like this?
Yeah.
That was my first thought. It seemed, watching the video of the performances, and it was a repetitive loop. So there's a little thing on the internet called GIFs, I think GIFs, of a piece of something just looped, and it just loops endlessly. So the dancers just did an endless loop of the same performance, which just seems fascinating to watch how a human, of course you can't reproduce the same thing, to watch that evolve as it goes through the show. So just a brilliant concept is all I have to say. And why don't I have time to go see cool stuff like this?
Yeah, I thought the title was a little misleading because of all the things they discussed. The computers weren't doing the actual choreography.
Right.
They were rearranging pieces of it and like calling up different parts of the choreography and those sorts of things. But there weren't. I was thinking when I read this, like, oh, how is the computer going to generate? Because they have that's this new thing with sort of folding in what computers can generate. There are these chatbot plays that are in New York right now, which are basically performances of transcripts of famous playwrights talking to chatbots. So trying to sort of actually have computers generate stuff. It seems like this is more of a way of randomizing things using computers rather than actually having computers generate work.
I mean, I think I like half agree with you. I think it's a collaboration between the choreographers and the computer. So I think the computer does have, in a sense, does choreograph the piece because it is, rearranging things and multiplying them and, cutting it is doing some of that work. And it's true, something had to be input. So, there has to be choreography that, a human being says, this is the first movement that they're going to do. So I think I treated it more as a collaboration, which I thought was really cool, that they came up with this final piece together.
I mean, they talked a lot about the work of Merce Cunningham, who kind of started this movement in a lot of ways. They talked about the use of technology and self-expression, that the computer allows you to kind of break out of your own train of thought and shove you in a completely different direction, which all of the artists said was pretty liberating in their process.
Yeah, there was that one guy who talked about having random input mechanisms built into a show like rolling dice or something, and that reminded me sort of what the surrealists used to do. Their idea was to try to bypass their conscious input into the art and do automatic drawing or automatic writing where it just came through them without their conscious thought. And it seems like this is another tool to do this. I'm still not willing to stipulate that the computer is making a contribution to the art. Maybe someday Skynet will be great.
I mean, what I thought was really, really cool about the new piece they were doing was that now they're involving the audience in it. And the audience is the one that's controlling what the technology is doing, which is controlling what the people on stage do. And what's interesting is that, at least I think for this piece and for another piece they talked about, they didn't tell the audience that was what they were doing. And so some of the audience members did realize after a little while into the show and then would do things to make the actors do what they wanted them to do, and some audience members never realized that what the people on stage were doing was related to their movement or their, putting a picture in front of the actor or any of that. So I think it's like a combination of the computer, the audience, and the choreographer and the dancers that I found really, really interesting.
I thought the most interesting part to me was the fact that the dancers were having to do moves that they have rehearsed, of course, but do it on the fly with the whatever stimulation from the computer gave them in whatever tempo it gave them. I mean, I can't imagine as a performer having to do a split second. I guess you're right. You have to kind of go from not thinking to just going and becoming a computer in that way, where you have these 6 moves that and you just have to be able to jump at the drop of a hat. So I thought that was really amazing that we're training humans to be computers for that dance piece.
Pretty soon it'll just be robot dancers.
Robot dance. When I saw the title, I was really wanting to see
Like the Chuck E. Cheese animatronics. That'd be so cool.
I'm afraid of that day. I don't know.
It will happen. Once we get enough 3D printing,
I
it will happen.
hope I'm not around for that. But speaking of 3D printing, Dale,
It's me.
Tyler, tell us about 3D printing.
Right, so this is an article written by John Paul Titlow and it's titled Why 3D Printing Will Be the Next Big Copyright Fight. And the most interesting part about this is that now that 3D printers are becoming readily available and cheaper and easier to come by, most people are going to start having them soon, and that a lot of people already do have them, and that people are starting to create things like with any other medium. They're starting to create things that people can buy. And I guess the big argument is based on Fernando Sosa created an Iron Throne chair based off of the Game of Thrones HBO TV show. He created an iPhone dock that you can print. You can buy it from him and print it. But the Game of Thrones HBO actually sent a cease and desist letter to him saying that it was infringing on their copyright. And so the whole question is, where does the copyright kind of end off? Like, you know, I think one of the interesting articles, or one of the interesting arguments in the article was that you can't copyright a chair because a chair is a chair. But once you start putting artistic license on the chair, where can the court separate the artistic from the actual purpose of the item? So I think it's a really good argument, and it from what I understand from the article is that we're just going to need to have a lot more court cases so that we can actually finally find the boundaries and the lines between this. So, any thoughts?
It seems like the next step of just intellectual content.
Right.
If it's a specific design, like that Game of Thrones was actually by a designer of a specific thing, and so that's the next logical progression. And I don't know if you have to copyright the file, but then controlling that is going to be very difficult. Because anybody with a 3D printer can get that file. Just like with MP3s and the music of Metallica.
Oh, exactly.
Exactly. Like they can't control it because it just gets out there and there'll be sharing of 3D files, and you can't. It's going to be incredibly hard to legislate.
And that was the thing that I found interesting about this was that what bothered me about it was that there was money being exchanged for another designer's work. So like while Fernando Sosa created this, and he probably took some artistic license of his own to create this chair, he still is basing it off of somebody else's design and making money off of it. So that's kind of where I get a little upset about it. But there's no way to control it.
And then they're going to
People are going to do it.
Sorry to interrupt. We have about a month till Fernando Sosa's file is going to get taken and just shared for free on the internet, and he's going to be out of that income too. So now the designer and the replicator, it's just going to be open source, and it's going to be you can't stop the beat.
Can't stop the signal. They should just see. This is why our long-standing copyright feuds on this podcast. It's just not gonna. There's not gonna be copyright anymore.
We're kind of heading in that direction, and it's too easy to share.
You know,
it's only going to get worse from here.
It's only going to get more difficult to control. So you have two choices. You go the Big Brother route, or you go the communism route.
I think
and the great part about this, is that it is giving advertisement to HBO. Like the Game of Thrones isn't really being hurt by this. If anything, it's bringing it to people that maybe wouldn't have heard about Game of Thrones. So I mean, I guess kind of look at it as free marketing.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you say that, then you can say that about everything that is illegally shared online.
Well, I mean, that is
I
kind
want
of
to
what
download this new music album, so I'll download it for free. And look, I would never have listened to it before, so now it's free publicity for them. But like.
Right, I mean, you're always going to have people doing the wrong thing.
Right.
But those people that do the wrong thing oftentimes inspire people to do the right thing. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is as many people as download illegal movies and download illegal music, there's also plenty of people that still pay for it. So hopefully we'll find that balance in the 3D printing as well. But
yeah, because we're really good at finding the balance of things.
I mean,
no, we've killed the music industry. We've killed the movie industry.
I still buy all of my music.
We've killed the movie industry?
Yeah.
The movie people.
We've killed the creative part of it.
Haven't killed it, but people that make movies and that make music have lost, at least on the low level, have lost their livelihood. And you go and see the small artists at the coffee shop, and they're like, please don't steal my music. This is how I live. And the movies have lost a lot of revenue from people stealing their
The
products.
movies are fine.
They're not. Look at a movie executive in here. I hate to defend movies, but yeah, they're losing a ton of money.
I mean, it's all the independent, all
Yeah.
the people that are actually doing the true art, not the commercial art, are really losing out.
I think
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
the situation is changing from you. It's starting to be more difficult to force people to pay you for things because you can get them for free.
Right.
But if people really care about something, the Veronica Mars movie, okay,
Yes!
for example,
Ah.
people will pay for something if they want it to happen. You know, like Kickstarter campaigns and that sort of thing. There are bands that say pay what you want for my CD, and they get. I mean, not everyone can do this. It doesn't work for everyone. But I mean, I think in a system like this, where it's going to become increasingly difficult for you to force people to pay for things, what you're going to have to start doing.
I think the direction that this is probably going to go in is something like Netflix or like the other things that you pay for where you, I mean, but think about how many people use Netflix and don't buy movies on iTunes or don't buy DVDs because they have Netflix. And they pay for Netflix and like then the Netflix, I don't really know how it works. Netflix pays the movie people for their product. I don't know how it works. But like eventually maybe the 3D printing will have its own, program, online warehouse that people pay for a subscription to that and can access things.
There's so many ways around Netflix now. I can watch any movie I want online right now for no money. Like it's already here.
Again, there's still plenty of people that will pay for Netflix. There's still plenty of people that do that.
People are silly.
Okay, we're going to switch gears a little bit now, and we're going to go to an article from the Denver Post called "Why Broadway's Breakfast at Tiffany's Has No Tiaras." Sorry, I couldn't read my own handwriting there. This is an article by Mark Kennedy, and it talks about the recent Broadway production of Breakfast at Tiffany's, and primarily focusing on how the production has taken a little bit of a different turn from the original. Colleen Atwood is the costume designer. And they talk a lot about how the artistic team did not want to recreate the movie for this production. So they've gone back to the original time period of Truman Capote's novella. So it's set in the 40s, not in the 60s like the movie. And audience members don't go into this and get what they expect from the movie. It's not the Audrey Hepburn, black dress. And I think people were a little bit startled by that. But the artistic team has chosen to depict the story in a little bit of a different light in their interpretation. What do you guys think about this?
Well, I want to commend them for actually setting it in the time period it's supposed to be. I mean, that's great, and I'm a huge fan of Colleen Atwood's work. I don't know that I'm so thrilled about all these movies being made into Broadway plays, because I do think that it's the problem, like if you go see Rocky Horror Picture Show, you expect Tim Curry, and you don't get it. So, when people follow these cult movies like Breakfast at Tiffany's and things like that, and they don't get what they want, there is a little bit of disappointment.
So what's happening? What's happening with this musical? How long is it going to run?
Oh,
Closing.
I think
It's already closing because Audrey Hepburn in that movie is a cultural icon. The cigarette smoker, the coat, the hair, the black dress. It's a cultural icon, and we go to see that. We did Alice in Wonderland, the theater company, but we modernized it. Alice wore a blue shirt and white pants. And we got hate mail from saying, "Where's her dress? I brought my daughter to see Alice in Wonderland, not this," which is exactly what happened at Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Right.
I mean, I think that this article is saying that they made an effort to try to kind of alleviate that. In the sense that they say they're doing this based on Truman Capote's book, not at all based on the movie.
Right, and I'm thrilled about. I was actually really thrilled about this production, and the reason why is because as much as I love the movie and as culturally relevant as the movie is, it's a terrible film. And it really, the story is just not there. It's very vapid, it's very shallow, and it really is a very depressing story. And so by setting it in the correct time period in this really I was thrilled about the idea of this, but unfortunately it seems that that more people want to just go and see the movie acted out on stage.
Unfortunately, that is what people want to see.
They want to see Shrek on stage.
Yes.
They want to see,
I hate this.
Legally
It is such a fine balance with any theater that we do. Do we push the limits? Do we interpret it differently? Or
always push the limits.
Or do we give the audience what they want?
Give the audience what they want. We're in it for the money.
So this is a case.
Artistic integrity.
Money. We need jobs.
Artistic integrity.
I got bills.
This is a case where this production has taken a risk, has interpreted it in a very intelligent way, and unfortunately they're closing because of it.
So another production which didn't take a risk and put Spider-Man in the Spider-Man costume, it is a terrible show, is still running because people see what they expected to see.
I mean, it's a very, very fine balance, and it's too bad that this is not working, because I think this interpretation is brilliant.
And it's interesting because we do this all the time in theater. At least me as a costume designer, I feel like I'm constantly. I just did Anything Goes, and they expect Reno to be in a red dress for Blow Gabriel Blow. I didn't put her in a red dress. The theater company got a bunch of mail about why wasn't she in the red dress? Why wasn't she in Ethel Merman's red dress? Well, why does she have to be? And why do I have to do the same thing over and over again just because you expect it? The show is so good. It doesn't matter if she's in a red dress.
Because we want to see the red dress. That's what it's like becomes
Ugly
a
red
cultural
dress.
icon, and then that is what we want to see. And being redundant.
But then you should see the movie, because theater is about creating a new thing for its time and place, in my opinion.
Well, and we shouldn't
It's
really
live.
be trying to tackle films as stage plays. I mean, they just did it with The Graduate. They just did it. I mean, it's a mess.
It's a tough area for us to be working through, certainly. We're going to switch gears and talk about a new lawsuit. Margo.
Yes, so this is on HollywoodReporter.com, an article by Eric Gardner, entitled IMDb Lawsuit, Actors Suing IMDb Plans to Have 9 Other Actors Testify. So Huang Hong, this actress is suing the Internet Movie Database for revealing her age. And IMDb is whining because she's bringing a bunch of witnesses and evidence, and they're saying, I don't know, they need more time to prepare their case, or they don't want her to have so many people testify, or, whatever else it is that they think they need to do in their defense.
They don't want to give her money.
They don't want to give her money, basically. And they've been sued before for things of this nature. So there were a lot of comments from people saying, basically, this woman should shut the hell up. That's basically what most of the comments said. I'm going to go ahead and disagree with that because let me tell you why. Does it matter what age an actor actually is, or does it matter what they look like? Are all the teenagers in the Vampire Diaries, they're like 30 years old? They're not, okay, they're not 15. It only matters what age it looks like you can play, and in fact, you are not legally able to consider someone's age when you're hiring them. And that's one of the things you can't ask about.
Why a lot of people commented and saying she should basically shut the hell up is that, at least from what I understood, she lied about her age, and then somebody found out about it because her real age was posted on IMDb.
Wait.
And that's how I understood, and that was what I read.
My question is, who?
What?
Who is it?
It's an actress.
What's her name?
Huang
Yeah, I've never heard it.
Never heard of
And
her.
here's my problem with this, is that this seems kind of like a very silly lawsuit, because really, who cares about what your age is? I mean,
Well, the people
honestly.
who are hiring her care. She's lost jobs.
But
Can
But
she prove
has
that?
she lost jobs because of her age?
That's
I don't
what
know
she's
that she can.
claiming.
But I don't know that she can prove
so,
that.
but
And
she can. She was offered a role in a movie. They found out her age, and then they took the part.
Well, so if that's the case, she should be suing the movie company.
Right.
IMDb has nothing
For discrimination
they have,
about
her
her
age is there.
Well, here's the other problem, though, is that she asked IMDb to take her age down, and they would not do it. That is the issue here, is that legally she does not want them to publish that information. She
But
has a
why-
right to not put that on her.
Why is she targeting IMDb? She needs to go after Rotten Tomatoes and after Wikipedia and after.
Okay, because IMDb is listen, people are lazy. People are so lazy. If I'm a casting agent, I will check IMDb maybe to verify your resume. I'm not going to go Google it. I'm not going to look at a bunch of private eye websites. However, if I happen to be on IMDb and be like, holy, you're 30 years old. You can't play a teenager on the WB, even though you can. I think because it's the big one, that's what matters. And because they require you to provide information that they then use to, dig up other information on you, basically do a credit check, I feel like that's a little much.
Nope, you shut down the IMDb 2, I will create it myself. It will be up tomorrow. You can't stop the internet.
But
It's too
do you
big.
agree with, if I am an actress and you own IMDb too, and you put my age on there and I ask you to take it down and you don't, is that an issue for you?
No, because it's my website. I'll stick true information on there. If it was a lie, yeah, but if I have your actual age, no, it's
right, because
my website.
it's not slander. It's true.
No, it's true.
So it's. I mean.
Right, but I think you have the right. I mean, if it's your professional face, right? IMDb is like the LinkedIn of movie professionals, right? And so if they get your information because they used information that they require you to submit to do a background check on you, I think that's going a little too far. I think that the system is already stacked enough against women and is so ageist and all of that it couldn't it would be nice if people could not I just don't understand why you need that information on there. And
I just I think my other thing is that if you're in such a public spot, if you're putting yourself in such a public spot, lying about your age seems a little silly.
Okay, but it doesn't even have to be
Because
lying
people
about
are
it.
gonna,
then
because
suing the
people are
people.
going to find it out no matter what. It's going to surface.
Right, but
so
it doesn't-
even IMDb putting it up there, it exists somewhere else.
Right, but
Yep.
like I said, someone is not going to go check for it. I think people are way less likely to check for it if it is not in the main spot.
It would have
that
come
they're
up
gonna
had
find
it not
things.
been on IMDb. It would have come up a year later.
Kat had the most valuable point, which was she should be suing the company
She should.
for discriminating against her age.
Right, but in the
Whether
future-
how they found out about it.
Right, but in the future, she's still going to be facing these problems. I think the industry is hard enough on actresses, with expectations about how they look, without also having them worry about people like disclosing their age in the most public way possible. I think it's not necessary. There's no reason it needs to be on there. Right? I mean, is there a reason
I
it needs
just
to be
feel
on
like the problem is anytime if you're a public figure, anytime you lie about anything, it's going to come out. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. So you have to either have a crack staff of people working night and day to like just sponge it off everything, or you just have to kind of admit it. And I think people do want genuine and real right now. I think that people are kind of fed up with.
No, I disagree. I think it's bullshit at casting.
No, okay, no, look at, this is, I read really trashy celebrity websites sometimes, full confession.
Sometimes.
People love
People love
Jennifer
the
Lawrence.
truth.
People are obsessed
Yes.
with her because she is not this like polished, like I'm going to be perfect in interviews and never embarrass myself. And she fell in the Oscars, and people were like, "You are the best thing ever." Like
Right.
people are currently in this like I'm not saying this is necessarily the case with everyone, but I think are moving away from the like perfect idealized celebrity that they just want like in a box. and they
Okay,
don't
that
wanna
may
know
be true,
anything about.
but you cannot say that women don't lose jobs because of their age.
Men lose jobs because of their age too. I don't think we need
I'm
to.
gonna say women losing way more.
But if you lose a job because your age, you should be angry with the hiring company, not with
I
whoever told
agree.
the
But
truth.
if you can do something, I just don't understand why IMDb needs to have their ages on there.
I guess we'll
Because
see.
I want to know how old people are.
Okay, well, we'll see if IMDb has some consequences from this. If not, they'll start up IMDb too.
It'll be up tomorrow.
It'll be up tomorrow. There you go. We're going to move on to a more somber article. Dale, why don't you tell us?
Yeah, here's a gear switch. This is from the Post-Gazette. This is an obituary from a man named Brian Johnston, who was a senior professor from the mid-'80s until 2007. He passed away earlier this March. This was selected for us to talk about. I just want to talk about this man and his career a little bit. He used to teach at the American University of Beirut back in the early 80s, when Beirut was a hotbed of terrorism and political. And he stayed there and he taught there. And there are some great anecdotes about his teaching experience. As the professors were leaving and the place was crumbling around him, that he stayed for a very long time and taught. Another big important part of this man's life was his work with Ibsen's work. Henrik Ibsen, the Norwegian playwright, who wrote from 1877 to the turn of the century. And Brian Johnston was the first person, he studied a lot in England, but he was the first person to come up with viewing Ibsen's body of work as a whole body of work, an Ibsen cycle. And he invented this concept and he published on it. And then he was a CMU faculty for many, many years. And I had not heard of this man as I did my research on him. And it's just interesting to think back of the effect he had on what we do, and just right down the hall from us for many, many years. And we sit here in this building and we do Ibsen plays here and we do our theater, but to think back on this man's life and what he contributed is worth taking the time and the thought for.
I mean, I really like his perspective on Ibsen here. He talks about how Ibsen isn't just a reflection of the social life. And I think he kind of places it in a context where it's timeless. And that's something that I really appreciate, because I think that these are stories that can be told in any period. And I think the tendency in our theater today is to do them in a period, to do them in a realistic setting that Ibsen established. But what I respect so much about Johnston's work is that he kind of opened up a new interpretation of that we can apply it to any time period. It doesn't just have to be that realistic period setting. I think he's really opened up a new discussion about Ibsen's work.
Making people think about new things is kind of what we do. So his name is Brian Johnston.
Yeah, so check out Brian Johnston's work, learn a little bit more about Ibsen. Really fascinating scholar, and that's it. So we're going to move on to another article here.
Yeah, let's talk about the Pope, shall we? This is called the Arts College of Cardinals equivalent. It's from Barry's blog. Barry is an arts administrator, and basically he talks about the selection of the new NEA chair. And he suggests that finding a new chair for the National Endowment for the Arts should be more like choosing a new pope. We should have the 100 most important arts leaders of the country get together in arena stage or something, and have a fire, sequester them there, and everyone should choose a chairman name. Like Anton Chekhov III or something. Right. And then they should send up smoke signals.
Theatrical fog signals. That was,
yes!
That was Andrew O'Keefe. I will not take credit
Thank
for
you.
that.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Andrew O'Keefe.
Theatrical fog signals. So this is just his suggestion that there's this sense of like ritual and a value, and it's this great sort of dog and pony show for the Catholic Church that it was on news 24/7. Like, when are they going to choose the Pope?
It's a big part of it, but I think another important part of it is the people in the room are the most knowledgeable people at choosing their own leader. Versus the president. I'm not sure if President Obama has worked in a war theater before, but his ability to choose the leader of the NEA might not be as good as the 100 people in that room. So it's getting the people in the room that will be most affected by this decision and having them figure it out.
However, I mean, let's be honest, being the chairman of the NEA is kind of less about being good at art and more about being political, right?
And distribution of resources also.
Right.
I mean, the other thing that I liked about this article is that they talked about Pope Benedict in particular and how his resignation is relevant to us.
Yeah.
Pope Benedict stepped down because he felt that he couldn't serve the community anymore. Barry here talked about how it's a selfless act that puts the institution ahead of the individual.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really great model for theaters. That I think that there's a lot of companies out there right now that have artistic directors that have been there forever.
Yep.
And maybe it's not in the best interest of the company to stay in that position. It's better to pass it on to someone who can take the company in a positive direction, put the institution ahead. I thought that was a really fascinating parallel.
Yeah.
I mean, I think to be the negative person in the room, amazing as that would be, of course, the reason that Pope Benedict said he stepped down is an honorable one. That would be great if artistic directors would be that self-aware, and of course having arts administration choose the next head of the NEA would be the ideal solution. But unfortunately, I mean, the president is political. The NEA is a political entity in a lot of respects, and it's most of the time choosing something that is worth a quarter of a quarter % of the budget is not something that people are going to care about.
But I think that's
if you're not working in a theater.
That's the idea that most people don't care who the Pope is, right? People really don't. But the fact that there's this huge ritual about it provides all of this press. And so I think that was his suggestion, that it might generate this sort of ritual can generate more interest if you treat it as this big solemn thing that you're doing. I mean,
as a piece of theater.
Ooh.
Yeah, maybe that would work. So think about who you're going to nominate for your 100 most important arts leaders.
I Chekhov the second. I'm going to go with that.
Okay, yes, come up with your Pope.
So a fun little article. We're going to finish with an article about things that I learned in theater school. Cass.
So this article is from a blog on the website of a Canadian actor called Callum Rovia. I think that's how you say his name. And basically it's a list of 32 points that he wishes that he had been taught while he was in theater school. He's now, I think, out working in Canada as a professional actor. And so this is a list of things that he wished that he'd learned. And so just to read a couple of them that I thought were really, really relevant. The first one, given that it is Playground Week, that he says is developing and producing your own work is the single most important thing you can do after you graduate. Which, if you went to the Playground opening ceremonies, a lot of what CMU's alumni said was that was what was so exciting about Playground and what served them best once they left the educational environment is being able to produce your own work. And regardless of whether someone is necessarily hiring you to do that, it's still important to have that ability and to push yourself to do that. So to have this as a second opinion for somebody who's written all these other things is really exciting. Another thing that a lot of people commented on actually was the final point, which was, don't go down this path just because you're good enough to be a professional actor. For the love of God, do it only because you cannot do anything else. So I'm kind of curious what you guys thought about that point of, God, get out of theater unless you really, really can't see yourself ever doing anything else. What do you guys think about that?
I think maybe he meant it more of like, if you just can't live without theater.
Right.
I think that's really what he was saying. And I think, because this whole thing is so humorous and it's really wonderful. And I'm in love with this whole post. So, yeah, I think it's like, you shouldn't be doing theater because there's no money in it.
Yep.
There's very little gratification in it. But if you love doing it, that's all you need. And if that's, all I can do is costume design. That's it. I can't do a damn thing else.
I've actually heard that that's professional advice that I've gotten before. Is that I have a lot of professors who have said, Lauren, do something else if you can. If you can't, go for it. Because I think the drive and the passion for it is really what keeps everyone in the business. If you don't have that, you should walk away.
And no one wants to work with somebody that can do something else.
So many of the 33 points were that of people being easy and good to work with. About you're going to get cast because you're easy to work with, maybe not because you're the most talented person in the room. So many things were just great advice that you're not the big shot, and we're looking for team players. And these are great advice for young actors and for pretty much any other field.
It's true.
I think a lot of the comments that the students posted on this, a lot of them kind of summarized it in this one sentence. I think it was, you're not as special as you think you are, which really was the point of a lot of his things. Like, you're as talented as much of a star as you were in school, that's not necessarily going to be the case when you leave, and so be aware of that, and be aware that there are other people who are working towards the same goal as you.
His number 25 is you are replaceable.
Yeah.
Which you are.
Honestly, I think in this business, a little bit of humility and kindness goes so far. It goes so far, and I think people forget about that very easily.
Goes a long way. Until you get to the celebrity icon status, and the bigger jerk you are, the better it is.
And even then,
thank you, Christian Bale.
It's nice to see big people that are still nice. So with auditions, like my company, the first thing we do when we're done with the day of auditions is go talk to the people at the table and say, was anyone a jerk to you? Was anyone especially nice? So we're gonna make note of that. And if someone is terrible, we are not going to hire them. Anything else on the start? I think that's it.
That's a sign.
That's it. It's over.
Everyone should read the article. Is what we're saying.
Print it out, hang it on your wall.
Hang it on your wall.
Okay. And be nice.
Words of wisdom from the podcast.
Thank you. You can quote me on that. On that note, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week.
Oh, loud in here.
Whatever you do, don't hit the wrong button.
Press the big button.
The big button.
What color is it?
It just says big.
No, I'm not sure.
It's probably the red button. I would assume it's the red button.
Margo.
Yeah, okay,
I don't know what these buttons do.
What happened? You guys